AGE.
I'm Bill Walter, KBNU News. News brought to you by Logan Extermination. Utahns are in for a special treat as the legendary Budweiser Clydesdales are making some stops in Utah this summer. The Clydesdales are saddling up for a tour to celebrate their 14-year partnership with Folds of Honor, a nonprofit that provides scholarships to families of fallen or disabled U.S. service members. The Utah leg of the tour begins next Wednesday on 25th Street as the fleet of majestic horses makes deliveries along Ogden's Main Street, ending at Lindquist Field from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. 2 days later, on June 28th, the Clydesdales will be in Salt Lake City, making deliveries along West Temple Street, East Broadway, University Boulevard, and Main Street. From 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., head to the streets of downtown Salt Lake to see the horses and witness a Folds of Honor scholarship check presentation. The final leg of the tour wraps up in West Jordan at a Smith's Marketplace from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. The Utah portion of the Clydesdales tour is only part of their overall nationwide adventure to promote the mission of Folds of Honor. Police said 3 people were injured due to a stabbing at a track station in Salt Lake City. The stabbing happened Tuesday afternoon at 4:20 p.m. It was near 221 West, 2100 South, the track's Central Point station. Officials said a juvenile suspect stabbed 3 people, one of which was in good condition, the other 2 in serious condition. Police said the victims were 1 adult and 2 minors. Police said the suspect took a tracks train down to Mill Creek Station where he was apprehended. Utah Transit Authority police responded to the incident. And the Logan City Water Department has closed Crockett Avenue from Canyon Road to 200 North. They're installing a valve on a large transmission line. It's scheduled to be closed until 7 o'clock tonight and will not be passable to emergency vehicles. KBNU weather brought to you by the Duct Hunter. Don't get trapped by an air duct cleaner on social media. Call a company you can trust, a local company, the Duct Hunter in Logan, 770-4813. Mostly cloudy tonight, low around 49, partly sunny on Thursday, high in the upper 80s, mostly sunny Friday, near 90 degrees. Get more news at CashValleyDaily.com.
With summer here, our beautiful lawns face a new threat. It's a threat you can't see because it's happening below the grass level, at the roots. Those nasty bill bugs and grubs are beginning to hatch and they are hungry. Your lawn is a smorgasbord to them and they can't wait to belly up to the table. Get a jump on those bugs by calling Logan Extermination today. They'll apply a custom spray for bugs and also fertilize to keep weeds under control and your grass growing tall. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
The newsmakers, the stories. Get it all here. News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Calling all golfers. Do you love tournament golf? I invite you to call Birch Creek today and sign up for the Birch Creek Am or Senior Amateur to be played this Friday, June 21st. The Birch Creek Am and Senior Am is an 18-hole stroke play event. All golfers must have a USGA handicap to participate. So if you love tournament golf, call Birch Creek today at 563-6825 and sign up for this Friday's Birch Creek Am and Senior Am. That's Birch Creek Golf Course in Smithfield.
Retirement. Are you ready? Adams Wealth Advisors specializes in preparing you for a secure retirement. There's no reason to feel frustrated. The team at Adams Wealth will create a personalized plan that includes timing of retirement, reliable income sources, Social Security, estate planning, and more. Adams Wealth Advisors has a team of CPA, certified financial planners, Social Security experts to help you plan and retire with confidence. Call today, 752-1702, or visit adamswealthadvisors.com. That's adamswealthadvisors.com. Your dream retirement starts here.
Have you noticed your furnace filter is extra dirty? John at the Duct Hunter recommends changing your filter every 3 months. If your furnace filter has been consistently dirty, you may want to have your air ducts cleaned too. Make sure you don't fall for the social media scammers. Call a Logan-based business, the Duct Hunter, for a free quote at 435-770-4813.
We are the Duct Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duct Hunter.
The
This is Mark Anderson with Anderson Seed and Garden. Our summer parking lot sale is underway. For a limited time, save big on all kinds of plants and trees. Fruit trees are now 30% off. Anderson's beautiful, colorful hanging baskets are 40% off. And perennials are now 25% off too. Also, get ahead of those nasty grasshoppers with sprays, baits, and repellents. Anderson's has all kinds of options for you to stop them right now. It's also time to apply Hydrotain to make your watering go 30 to 50% farther in this heat. Anderson Seed and Garden, 69 West Center in Logan. Online at andersonseedandgarden.com.
When I first ran as a candidate, I made the simple promise that I would listen and restore your voice. I listened while holding dozens of town hall and cottage meetings, and by responding to hundreds of emails, texts, and phone calls. I helped a family when their contractor failed to finish their new roof, when a family couldn't get their money from the state's MyCash website, and when a family needed help navigating services for their elderly mother. This is Representative Mike Peterson, and I sponsored this message.
Curious about Bell Sculpt and what sets it apart from other cosmetic treatments? At Bell Medical, we specialize in minimally invasive body sculpting, which means no general anesthesia, so you're awake and comfortable throughout. You can even watch fat being removed. Unlike those who freeze fat cells, we permanently remove them, providing instant results in just one visit. With Bell Sculpt, you're guaranteed 2 to 5 inches of fat loss, all in a safe and effective way. Schedule your free consultation at our Bountiful Clinic at bellmedical.com. That's BELLE medical.com.
If you've lost someone to suicide, you know the feelings: isolation, abandonment, anger. But you should also know that you're not alone. 91% of Utahns say they've been impacted by the loss of a family member, friend, coworker, or neighbor to suicide. And there is support for those left behind. Find resources and connect with others who have similar experiences by visiting liveonutah.org. September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Learn what you can do at liveonutah.org. Supported by the Strong Auto Group.
Join us each week for Music and the Spoken Word, featuring the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square, the longest-running continuous weekly network broadcast in the world. Each episode features modern and traditional arrangements of spiritual, classical, and contemporary music, and a timely, inspiring message. Truly an uplifting program that will have you returning to each week. Music and the Spoken Word with the Tabernacle Choir.
Sunday mornings at 8 and again in the afternoons at 6 on News Talk KVNU.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Hour 2 of today's show. Thanks again to Logan City Mayor Holly Daines for stopping by in Hour 1 for our Speak to the Mayor segment. If you missed that, we spent most of our time talking about the report Logan City both helped inform but also received, once combined with state data, which comes from UDOT regarding Main Street and others, on crash and traffic data in general. Long story short, we've got a problem looking out for pedestrians here in Logan. We've got a running red light problem. We've got speeding, definitely have a speeding problem. And we've got an aggressive driving problem, to say the least. And that is in contrast to our neighbors in Rich and Box Elder County and even Weber County. Not a good trend, not something you want to see, but this is an interesting discussion to have, and we'll get back to it later on this hour because there is also an article right along these lines. Let's call it this, the ripple effect of driver behavior. It's a fascinating, this is written by a physicist co-writing with a behavioral scientist. And the two of them bringing their areas of expertise together to talk about what happens on the roadways behind you after you do X. Some little things that we all do that are contributing to traffic problems that we don't really know about because we've moved on down the road, but everyone behind us is cursing our name. It's a really fascinating look. The physicist approaches this from the physics of your tires on the road and your car and what that causes to happen when you have a sea of cars on the road in combination with, and here's where the behavioral scientist steps in combination with the way our eyes and brains translate all this, the way we react things we do when there's a sea of cars around us versus things we do when it's just us and maybe one oncoming car way down the road. It's really fascinating, but also kind of frightening. We'll talk about it. You can read the full article. I've linked to it on our Facebook page. This was published earlier this week from Political Magazine in their culture section. So you can read it now. We'll talk about it later on this hour. Right now, I was hoping to check in at a key time. At a key time during this special session happening on Capitol Hill right now. Unfortunately, it looks like they are in fine fashion for the Utah legislature. They are a bit delayed getting things going. The debates and more were supposed to start at 4. They didn't start till about 4:45. So that means they haven't moved through the agenda. But a fascinating conversation happening on the House floor right now over something called House Joint Resolution 3001. This is basically a bill. There's no other way to put this. This is a nullification bill. This is a bill that aims to say the state doesn't agree with this or that federal law, and so the state is going to ignore that law until a court says they can't. Now, what happens before this law was passed here in Utah? What would happen is if the state disagreed with a federal law or federal rules change and sued, the state had to follow the law because it was a law until a court said they didn't have to. The state wants to reverse that. The state wants to say we don't have to do what the federal government tells us to do until a court says we have to. This is interesting because it's not straight up nullification, which the Supreme Court has basically said that ain't going to happen, states. There's a reason we have a federal government, and there kind of has to be rules. So the state of Utah had tilted at that windmill for a long time. They've since let that go. But again, now they're taking this different approach, which is to say that, when there's an issue where there's a federal law or a federal rule, executive order, whatever it might be from the federal government, and the state disagrees or doesn't like it, the state then sues and says, we don't think this is constitutional. That's part of the process. There's a healthy tension there between states and the federal government that will always and should always exist. But the state wants the book to be flipped a bit, and the state wants to be able to ignore the federal law until the court rules, until the court says, oh, no, you can't ignore that. The proponents of this say it puts less of the burden on the state, puts the burden back on the federal government while we wait for the courts to weigh in. And that's a fair argument, I think. Critics of this say it would basically allow a state to ignore federal law, have de facto nullification, which, again, the Supreme Court has said repeatedly for a century is unconstitutional. The critics will say, and also I think correctly, that this would allow a state to indefinitely ignore a federal law through, or not indefinitely, but for a lengthy period of time, intentionally ignore a federal law, knowing they were going to lose in court. But through the court process and the appeals process taking years, the state could basically choose to ignore a federal law, knowing that, once the clock runs out, they're going to have to follow along. But until the courts get around to it, they don't have to. And I think that will be abused, the critics will say. And I agree with that. So here's a bit of the discussion. This is happening on the House floor right now. Lawmakers are going to be asked probably in the next half an hour or so to vote on this, whether the state should move in this direction and whether taxpayers should pick up the legal bills, knowing that it is a long shot again. Here is what the sponsor is saying right now to this proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Briscoe. Further discussion to the bill, Representative Perucci.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this resolution, and I also would just like to comment. The previous legislator from the Salt Lake area said that men and women came together when creating this country in our founding documents. And I teach American government, and this colleague is also an educator, but I just want to correct that. Actually, no. There were not women at the Constitutional Convention. They did a fine job, gentlemen. They really did. But Abigail Adams asked for them to remember the ladies, and they didn't. And so women, for years, fought for a seat at the table. And starting in the 1800s, they petitioned to have the right to vote. And were not granted it until 1920. And again, fought to have sports and protections under the law to be treated equally as females. That's why we are here today. And as a woman, I am standing in support of other women, my daughter, and future girls of this state and country to understand that, yes, this protection exists for you. There is a place for you in sports. No one is trying to target teenagers or individuals. The bills that we're addressing had privacy plans in place and were compassionate in their approach. But let's not whitewash history in saying men and women had a seat at the table. Women have always had to fight for their place at the table, and again, are continuing to fight to maintain that seat.
Thank you, Representative Perucci. Further discussion to the bill. Representative Stratton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. By way of background, as this ruling came out, it became a great concern because we have a conflict in the law in the state of Utah. On one hand, we've passed law, gone through the legislative process, the vetting, and passed a law, and there's a direct conflict. And when there is a direct conflict, we have founding constitutional documents that define who should oversee. There's 4 words you can ask that are very helpful. If governed, who governs? The first question is, the real sovereign is the people. That's the real sovereign, the people. And then, if you decide we're going to govern, who should govern? Now, clearly, constitutionally, the health, safety, and welfare is in the stewardship of the states. But that doesn't mean, and it is disheartening to hear, that because it is in the jurisdiction state, that the state doesn't care about the health, safety, and welfare of every citizen in that state. What this bill does is it delineates and puts in a safe place the constitutional parameters of who should govern. That's what this does. And I appreciate the comment. I stand in support of this legislation. With clarity, we need to stake out our responsibility and allow that to play out as we seek to protect and safeguard the health, safety, welfare, and all. And to be clear, we're talking about every citizen in this state. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Stratton. Further discussion to the bill. Representative Binion.
You're listening again to a live debate on the House floor, and as you can tell, things getting pretty feisty there. Again, what this is a so on the surface, this is a debate over the future of a Utah passed law in this 2024 legislative session. Earlier this year, they passed a law that, to borrow words from Republican state auditor, is the bathroom monitor bill. It's a bill that basically says that people can only use the bathroom of the gender they were assigned at birth. But proponents of the bill say this is protecting women. Opponents say that it is just bigotry. That debate won't be settled anytime soon. It's not going to be settled today on the House floor. But so that's on the surface what the debate is about. But what it really is about is so federal rules. The Biden administration announced Title IX rules that include protection on college campuses for transgender individuals. Basically, rules that say you can't tell someone who identifies as a woman that she is not allowed to use the women's room restroom on college campus because at birth she was assigned the gender male. You have to respect transgender individuals, the rules say, and if they've gone through the process, if they are fully transitioned, if they are legally recognized as a woman by the state they live in or the state they're in, which, that would include Utah. There are processes for that on the books here in Utah even. Then, no, you can't tell them they can't go into that bathroom. Those are the Title IX rule changes announced by the Biden administration, which means this law passed by the state of Utah earlier this year, at that point immediately became something that would put at risk federal funding for education here in Utah. You can't violate Title IX rules and get federal funding. That's the whole purpose of the Title IX system. Title IX was a way to bring more women onto campus and make consistent some of the rules that govern campuses for equality purposes, originally based around women on campus. And Title IX has been expanded before to include others in the 90s, the 2000s, and then again here in 2024 by the Biden administration. But it does mean this law passed by Utah State lawmakers earlier this year could now put at risk federal funding for higher education, something Utah can't afford to lose. So lawmakers' response to this is the debate you're hearing. I heard a little bit of there on the House floor. They are going to use a law also just recently passed in the legislative session that says until a court says we have to, we're not going to acknowledge this federal rule. It's not straight up nullification, which again the Supreme Court has said is unconstitutional. States don't get to do that. But it's close. It's saying we don't like this federal rule and we're not going to do it until a court says we have to. Whereas normally what happens is a federal rule is put into place or a law is passed by Congress. A state doesn't like it. A state says we're going to challenge this in court, but a state has to play along until a court sides with them. Utah wants to flip the script and say the state doesn't have to play along until a court forces them to. Lawmakers debating that right now on the House floor. They have up until 5 o'clock, I think, to vote. 6 o'clock to vote. So we'll see where this goes. The legislative special session that started at 10 a.m. going a lot later than I think anybody, including leadership, expected on the House floor and Senate floor right now. So we'll keep an eye on this as the hour progresses. Stay tuned. More of KVNU's For the People to come right after this.
Cache Valley Cruising.
Cache Valley's biggest summer party is almost here. The Cache Valley Cruise-In, July 4th, 5th, and 6th at the Cache County Fairground. This year, the Cruise-In is going Motown with the Commodore. And opening act, the Temptations Review, featuring the legacy of Dennis Edwards. This year, all seats are assigned. So buy your tickets now to ensure you get the best seats available. The giveaway car is a beautifully restored 1950 Ford F3 pickup. And your ticket to the car show is your chance to win the truck. 3 days of fun includes the annual poker run, Women's World, Top Rod of Utah, a sock hop, and more.
Cache Valley Cruising. Cache Valley Cruising.
July 4th, 5th, and 6th at the Cache County Fairgrounds.
I spend a lot of time in the garage, but even more time in the rain, sleet, and mud. In 95, I helped tow your moving trailer. In 05, I helped you get out of a ditch. Yeah, I know I'm a bit rusty, and sadly in 09, it was sparks from me, your handy chains, dragging behind your truck that accidentally started a wildfire.
Sparks from dragging chains can start a wildfire. Spark a change, not a wildfire. Visit SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Still kind of keeping an eye on this legislative debate. Again, a special session playing out today. Many things on the agenda today, but the one that seems to have kept them in special session, possibly until 6 o'clock tonight, I think is when they are supposed to wrap up. So the clock is ticking, and they haven't voted on this one yet. But a debate happening on the House floor right now over, on the surface, it's a debate over the future of a Utah law that says you have to use the bathroom of the gender you were assigned at birth. The bathroom monitor bill is what State Auditor John Dougal calls it, because they made him the bathroom monitor, and he was not happy about that. His office is the office that has to field all of the complaints of people that, I think I saw a transgender person in my bathroom. And then they have to investigate, and yeah, he was really irritated. And apparently the lawmakers who wrote the bill didn't ask him about this beforehand. So he made some funny videos there calling himself the bathroom monitor. Oh, wait. They are voting. I'm wrong. I thought this wouldn't happen, but they're voting. Let's tune in. This is a debate over whether the state of Utah has to acknowledge federal rules that they don't like. Couple lawmakers slow to vote here.
Seeing all present having voted, voting is now closed. HJR 301 passes this body with 57 yes votes, 14 no votes, and be sent to the Senate for its consideration. Madam Reading Clerk.
Wow. Surprising.
HJR 301, concurrent resolution.
Surprising vote there with several Republicans not voting along. It is, I didn't expect that. Again, this was a vote to allow, on the surface, this was a vote over the future of Utah's bathroom monitor bill. And as the state auditor called it, and it's the best way to describe it, really. It was a bill that said it's illegal to use a bathroom that doesn't match the birth you were assigned at gender. And then the state auditor's office is in charge of fielding the complaints that people can send in or call in if they feel that someone violated that law. Then at the federal level, new Title IX rules were announced by the Biden administration, including protections for transgender individuals on college campuses, which would make this Utah law on the bathroom monitor law here in Utah illegal, unconstitutional. If not that, it would certainly cost Utah federal funds for higher education, something Utah cannot afford to lose because we lose all of our colleges. So it's a concern. What is really being debated here and what just passed, and you heard it live here on our show. I could not have timed that. They could not have timed that better. I apologize. I was complaining about their timing because they timed it perfectly. So it just passed right now, as you heard with the voting. What this is a joint resolution enacting a law also passed in the recent legislative session that says if Utah doesn't like a federal rule or law, Utah doesn't have to do it until a court says they have to. Now, the way this works so far with all the other states and the federal government is if there's a federal rule or a law passed by Congress that a state doesn't like, a state is welcome to sue. But a state has to comply with the federally approved rule or law until a court says they don't. Utah wants to flip the script. Utah wants to say, no, a state shouldn't have to comply until a court says they do have to comply. Proponents say this is more fair and puts the burden on the federal government, an argument that I think makes sense. Opponents, also in an argument that I think makes sense, say this will be widely abused by states who just want to buy themselves a couple of years to do more of this or that has since been made against the rules by Congress or by the president through executive order, and states could literally buy themselves up to 4 years through a lengthy court and appeals process, and that will be abused. which I think is also true. But one way or another, the state legislature just voted 57-14. I'm surprised that many Republicans joined Democrats to vote no. I mean, it's not, obviously the bill just passed. It doesn't matter, but that's still a high number of Republicans joining the 7 Democrats. But the bill is passed. The state has just voted to move ahead with this at taxpayer expense, of course. This will now head into court because this is going to be immediately challenged by the federal government, and we'll see how this one turns out. It should be interesting. And like I say, these things, they waste a lot of taxpayer money sometimes. Other times, they're great questions to be asking. And personally, I think a little tension between the federal government and the states is always pretty healthy for both entities, the states and the federal government. So we'll see where this one ends. But there you have it, folks. The legislature just voted to move ahead, challenging the status quo, where if a state doesn't like a federal law or rule, the state has to comply until a court says they don't. Utah wants to flip that script and wants the rule to be a state doesn't have to comply until a court says they do. This is going to be interesting. But not nullification, but something close. And the Supreme Court has signaled before even this iteration of the court, not an argument they're very open to honoring. So we'll see where this one goes. They're still debating rule changes to a bill that would have forced Rocky Mountain Power, or that will force Rocky Mountain Power to keep a coal-fired power plant open 4 years longer than Rocky Mountain Power had planned to. That bill passed in the legislative session. The problem is apparently 14 different cities asked the legislature not to pass it and asked the governor to veto it, and were ignored by both. The reason the cities have now gone to the media and said, look, this throws our entire long-term power planning up in the air and might even risk projects we've already heavily invested in for our own power needs. So the legislature now has to fix that mess they created. That bill is now up for debate after they take a quick 5-minute break, and we'll do the same. We'll check in on the future of the last coal-fired power plant in Utah, the future being weighed by the legislature as we speak in a special session playing out on Capitol Hill today in Salt Lake City after the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. Search and rescue crews were called out to help a stranded hiker Tuesday afternoon. The 28-year-old man reportedly called 911 after getting stuck in Logan Canyon, US 89. Cache County Sheriff's Lieutenant Tim Ramirez said the hiker was in the steep rocks above the Stokes Nature Center trail when they became what's known as cliffed out. The man was not injured, but could not figure out how to get down safely. Search and rescue teams were able to locate the man using a drone. A deputy was then able to climb up to the hiker. Ramirez explained that crews originally planned to set up ropes and lower the man off the cliffs. However, due to the steep and rocky conditions, a helicopter from the Department of Public Safety was called in. The helicopter was able to use a hoist to lift the man off the cliff and return him to a command center that was set up along the highway. He was not hurt and released without requiring any medical treatment. The rescue took about 4 hours. Deputies briefly shut down a section of US 89 to allow the DPS helicopter to land several times during the rescue. The first Utah man to be sentenced to death in over a decade is petitioning to not be executed. The state is scheduled to execute Tabaron Honey on August 8th by lethal injection. If it happens, it will be at the Utah State Correctional Facility in Salt Lake City. But Honey has filed a petition for clemency. This is one of his last chances to avoid execution. In his petition, he is asking for a commutation hearing before August 8th. In the hearing, he and others would be allowed to testify as to why they believe he should not be put to death. In the end, the Board of Pardons and Parole will make the final decision. KVNU weather, mostly cloudy tonight and overnight, low in the upper 40s, around 49 degrees, partly sunny on Thursday, high around 87, mostly sunny Friday, and around 90 degrees. KVNU weather brought to you by Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. He has access to many insurance carriers and will give you options to protect your business. Give your insurance package a fresh look. Quality First Insurance, 752-0101. Get more news at CashValleyDaily.com. I'm Bill Walter, KVNU News.
Make laundry a snap with the large load washers and dryers at Mount Logan Laundry. Rather than 8 to 10 loads at home, get the job done in 1 or 2 with their 55 or 80-pound washers and 80-pound dryers that are perfect for sleeping bags, comforters, and other big items. Mount Logan Laundry has free Wi-Fi and drop-off service, plus they're open until midnight. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town. Find them at 5th East and 9th North in Logan or in Brigham City on the corner of 1st East and 7th South.
ABC News, I'm Daria Olbinger. The Galveston area is already experiencing coastal flooding from Tropical Storm Alberto. This resident expected rising water, but not like this.
Had no idea it was going to come from below. You know, we thought the rain was going to come down on top, but we didn't know it was going to come up through the storm drain.
And Texas Governor Greg Abbott has issued disaster declarations for 51 counties. At least 2 deaths are confirmed in the 2 major wildfires that are burning in the Ruidoso, New Mexico area. The region is also under a flash flooding emergency due to pop-up thunderstorms. 70 million Americans, Kentucky to Maine, are under heat alerts. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry has signed a bill which makes the state the first in the nation to require that the 10 Commandments be displayed in all public classrooms. The markets were closed today for Juneteenth. They will be open as usual tomorrow. This is ABC News.
Wonder is timeless. Discovery is everlasting. And exploration is never-ending. At Loveland Living Planet Aquarium, we cherish the unforgettable memories you've shared with us for the past 25 years. Thank you for being a part of our story. Visit livingplanetaquarium.org to embark on a new adventure and continue our journey together.
Today's hearing aid technology can improve not only your life, but the lives of the people who care about you. Once again, you'll be able to hear the reason for their laughter and understand conversations. Dr. Paul Danes will customize a hearing improvement program to meet your unique requirements, whatever they are. Call Dr. Danes for an appointment at 753-HERE and let him show you how.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
Now is the time to get your vehicle's transmission ready for those hot summer months, and AMCO can help. AMCO Transmissions is located at 75 East, 2000 North. They are the business you can trust. Their Safeguard transmission service is the industry standard. Kurt Zollinger and his team will replace your vehicle's transmission fluids, do an inspection, and test drive to give you peace of mind when you're on vacation. AMCO Transmission in Logan. Online at amcoutah.com. See store for details.
Elements has delicious lunch specials. Soup, salad, and bread for just $10 is tasty and quick. Elements lunch menu is full of scrumptious items. Wood-fired pizzas are an excellent choice that include barbecue chicken and the bee's knees. The fresh battered halibut fish and chips with seasoned fries is always a hit. And don't forget the fan favorite, Chipotle fried chicken sandwich. Thursdays, enjoy Elements house made smoked brisket. Casual or professional. Open Monday through Thursday, 11:30 to 8 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11:30 to 9. Visit theelementsrestaurant.com for reservations.
Kind of hot in these rhinos.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. The House, despite the votes, still arguing about 2 different bills that were on the agenda today. One, a bill that people are calling the nullification bill. It isn't really nullification, but kind of. It's the state saying if we don't like a federal law or a federal rule, then we can ignore it until a court says we have to play along. The way this normally works is if a state doesn't like a federal law or a federal rule, they are welcome to sue, but they are required to follow the law until the court says they don't have to. Utah wants to flip that script. That bill passed and will head straight into the court system and could end up at the United States Supreme Court if the state wants to push it that far. Right now, though, the House is, still yelling at each other, basically. This has been interesting, to say the least, for a special session to be this heated, but they are still arguing about it. Now, they voted for House Joint Resolution 301. This is the concurrent resolution. Directs state government. Basically, the long title is directs government officers under the Utah Constitution Sovereignty Act regard to Title 9. What it's basically saying is it's telling everybody in the state you don't have to follow this federal rule. Now, what's at the center of this is a bathroom bill passed during the legislative session that says you can only use the bathroom of the gender you were assigned at birth. The state auditor calls it the bathroom monitor bill because they made him the bathroom monitor, and he's not happy about it. But they're protecting that law, which would basically cost the state, under these new Title IX rules that were approved by the Biden administration, which the president gets to do. Any president. The new rules say, you can't be in violation of Title IX rules and still get federal funding for education. Utah can't afford to lose that funding, so they're going about it this way. Instead of repealing the bathroom monitor bill, they're saying we don't have to abide by the new Title IX rules unless a court says we have to, which a court likely will, but it'll take 2 years. What surprises me, though, again, is they had the vote. The bill passed, the resolution passed, and they're still arguing about it. And this, I think, might actually be a first for a vote to happen and the argument to continue. Right now, our own Representative Dan Johnson is speaking.
Praiseworthy is really what it was. But I just wanted to prove to people that young women had the right, the same as boys, and that they could become tremendous athletes and do things really, really well if well taught. And I think when we see their participation now as young ladies grow up and through high school and college into pro sports, that's been proven a lot. But there's another thing related to this, and that was I think I've spent over 50 years standing up for the right of women generally. And I just don't like things that, we work so hard to get in place, and then these kinds of actions sort of fly in the face of it. And I don't think it's right. So I would just encourage you to be reflective upon this. We do need to protect all people. That's not what this is about hurting people. It's about giving everyone the right to do things that they desire to do, and to do it in a fair and equitable way. And so with that, I really feel like this resolution does have a lot of merit. I think it sends a very important message, and I think it's one that this legislature needs to stand up for. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I ask for your support of this. I have a long history, personally, of Title IX and what it has meant, what it has done for women over the years is absolutely phenomenal. Something we should protect.
Thank you.
Representative Johnson referencing the way the new Title IX rules would intersect with college athletics as well, which is Utah had previously also banned transgender athletes from playing on women's teams. So that would be another law passed by the state legislature that could cost Utah federal funding for education. This is the legislature pushing back against that with a resolution basically instructing everyone in the state, including college campuses, to ignore the new Title IX rules unless a court says they can't. Again, flipping the script. Traditionally what happens is if a state doesn't like a federal rule or a law passed by Congress, they sue. and they have to abide by the rule until the court says they don't. Utah wants to flip that and say we don't have to abide by this new rule until the court says we do. This hasn't been tried before. We'll see where this goes. But again, I'm surprised this resolution has passed, and the House, with a surprisingly large number of Republicans voting against. I expected unanimous Republican support in the House, at least. It did get unanimous Republican support in the Senate. But in the House, they're still arguing. You heard Representative Dan Johnson speaking for the bill there. Here are a few
Bernie
rising
Sanders
to speak
said
against.
When Title IX passed, oh, maybe now when a school holds its field day, there will be more activities for girls. She didn't anticipate the huge increase in girls participating in high school and collegiate sports when she was moving to get this language adopted to get equality for women in the United States of America. So since 1971, 72, when this passed, and 294,000 girls were participating in high school sports across the United States, we have well over 4 million high school girls participating now in sports across the United States because of Title IX.
Representative Jenkins there arguing against the resolution, pointing out that Title IX has always been about inclusion. And Jenkins making the case that many of the Democrats in the House have tried to make today that that does include transgender individuals. One other lawmaker on the Democratic side of the aisle earlier said, what does this cost anyone? And wanted an answer. The House Speaker said, no one wants to answer. We're moving on. A pretty heated debate over this. But again, it's the broad question outside of the transgender issues at the heart of all this is, can a state ignore a federal rule or a law passed by Congress until a court says they have to? Proponents say this puts the burden on the federal government rather than the states, which is a reasonable argument. Opponents say this opens a whole can of worms of states just, being the Wild West and states just ignoring federal law anytime they want to because they can at least buy a couple of years with a slow judicial system, which also I think is a true thing. That will be abused, and I'm not sure Utah has thought about. I'm not sure our lawmakers have thought about that side of it. A future legislature that might abuse that. Let's do a hypothetical scenario here to explain that. Let's say Utah starts trending blue or purple, and you have enough purple or blue vote blocks in, let's say, Weber County, Salt Lake County, and parts of Cache County, because that's likely how this will play out. Or, Davis County, and eventually parts of Cache County. But this is going to start, Utah's blueing, if it happens, is going to start in Salt Lake, Weber County, where it's already happening, and then parts of Davis County. And say you have enough voters and enough legislators elected that are Democrats to make it more of a even mix in the House and the Senate, state House, state Senate. And then you have a Republican president, and a Republican president wants to say shrink a national monument, but he's only going to do it if the state legislature votes to ask he or she to, and then the state has turned purple enough. There are enough Democrats in the House. They have a vote, and a few Republicans from the northern part join the Democrats, and they vote no. Don't shrink the national monument. Well, obviously, Republicans, that's going to work against their preference. This is a hypothetical, at least 20 years, if even then, down the road hypothetical for the state of Utah. Now, imagine that scenario where a federal rule from a president who's a Republican is approved through that president's administration, or Congress, which has a Republican majority at the time, passes a law, but there are enough Democrats in the legislature of Utah to say, well, back in 2024, lawmakers said we don't have to do this unless a court says we have to. And so they ignore that rule. And there are enough Democrats in the House to vote to do so. And so then they ignore the Republican president's executive order or Title IX rule or a law passed by a Republican-dominated Congress. You see where I'm going here? Utah lawmakers sometimes fall into this supermajority bubble where they forget to think about a time when they aren't a supermajority and how the rules that they set in place today might play out in that scenario instead. And so I think we might regret opening up this can of worms. Because there will come a time when you have, more of a mix in the state legislature of Republicans and Democrats, and Democrats able to get enough Republicans to join them to make a majority. And then you have a Republican president and a Republican-dominated Congress passing laws and making rules that most Republicans here in the state are really liking. But then the Democrats in the legislature say, well, because of this rule passed in, or this law resolution rather passed in 2024, we have authorization as a state to ignore that law from Congress or that rule from that Republican president because we don't like it. And we're going to ignore it until a court says we can't. So I'm not saying that it's bad to go down this road. I'm saying that I'm not sure that our lawmakers enjoying a very comfortable and long-lived Republican majority, supermajority really, in the state legislature, I'm not sure they've thought out how ignoring federal laws and federal rules plays out long term when things start to change a little bit. And I'm just using that as an example of why we might not want to dabble with this kind of stuff. That said, again, I'm very sympathetic to the idea of flipping the script as the state lawmakers voted to do today, to put the burden on the federal government. And the reason I would support that is even if a state is suing or challenging something I personally like, the federal government, I think, has the resources more so than most states to shoulder that burden. So having the states say, look, if you want to stop us from ignoring you, you've got to sue us. I am sympathetic to that argument. But, I mean, it does have a bit of a Wild West quality to it because, remember, folks, there are blue states out there too. And if Utah opens this can of worms and every other state decides to follow, at that point, it's just 50 countries. It's not a United States of America anymore. That makes me nervous. We'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
Calling all golfers. Do you love tournament golf? I invite you to call Birch Creek today and sign up for the Birch Creek Am or Senior Amateur to be played this Friday, June 21st. The Birch Creek Am and Senior Am is an 18-hole stroke play event. All golfers must have a USGA handicap to participate. So if you love tournament golf, call Birch Creek today at 563-6825 and sign up for this Friday's Birch Creek Am and Senior Am. That's Birch Creek Golf Course in Smithfield.
This is Dr. Red, chiropractic physician with Red River Health and Wellness. Are you suffering with fatigue, brain fog, headaches, intestinal issues, weight gain, and you haven't been able to find any answers?
Before I started at Red River, I was having a lot of stomach pain. I was overweight, severe anxiety, some depression. I had been to multiple doctors. I'd been to specialists. We had done tests, and no one could find anything that was wrong.
Red River Health and Wellness can help you.
I'm on anxiety medicine. I've lowered my dose, and I'm working with my doctor to continue to lower it. I'm sleeping through the night. I have energy for my kids. I've lost 30 pounds. I just feel really good.
Our goal is to teach you and educate you so you know how to manage your condition a lot more effectively, and you know what to do and what not to do for the rest of your life.
Schedule your appointment today at 855-55-RIVER. Red River Health and Wellness with offices in Logan, South Jordan, Springville, and St. George.
Call Red River today.
Utah, it's time to elevate your work game with the new Polaris Ranger XP 1000. With the upgraded Gen 2 transmission, LED headlights, and a pre-installed roof and winch, it's built to help you get more done and have more fun. Polaris, think outside.
When I first ran as a candidate, I made the simple promise to restore your conservative voice in the Utah State Legislature. I voted to reduce your taxes by over $1 billion. I sponsored legislation to protect your private property, and I voted in opposition to the state partnership with MLB and NHL owners. I also voted to protect girls from biological males in athletic events and in locker rooms. I'm proud to be endorsed by State Senator Chris Wilson. This is Representative Mike Peterson, and I sponsored this message.
Water getting inside your home? Driveway cracking? Your deck need cleaning or sealing? Hey, Gary Sullivan here from At Home with Gary Sullivan. I can help you with those home improvement projects each weekend right here. In fact, we'll take your calls about your home issues and give you solutions. We'll tell you how to fix it, what to use, and where to get it. We'll also have expert guests to help you with your projects. Hope you can join us this weekend right here on At Home with Gary Sullivan.
Saturday nights at 7 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Just a little over a minute left in the hour here, or in the show, rather. So appreciate everyone tuning in, and we'll leave everybody with a little odd news, something entertaining maybe to take into your evening. I don't know, maybe this isn't entertaining, maybe this is creepy, but remember a few years ago this weird monolith that popped up in southern Utah and then disappeared and then popped up somewhere else in southern Utah? And then for a couple of years, no one heard a thing about it or found an explanation. Nobody fessed up. This is a big, 14-foot tall, shiny black, foot-thick metal object. It was just sitting in a desert in Utah and then moved somewhere else. Again, disappeared for a couple of years. Nobody heard about it. Well, it popped up in Nevada. Las Vegas police said on their Twitter account that members of a search and rescue team stumbled across this, quote, otherworldly object over the weekend near Gas Peak, part of the vast Desert National Wildlife Refuge, and they have no idea why it's there. Someone obviously put it there, and something obviously put it there. But no one knows why. But it's made its way from Utah to the Nevada desert now, and